So the first question is, when? When do we think this is going to roll out? And what will be the changes, the path to do it? So who would like to talk about when? Great. Can you pass the microphone?
No, I have
you have a microphone. We're all good. Go ahead.
Yeah, we all do. We're all good. From our point of view, we've already started on that migration in terms of being able to move more to a network as a service. The network as a service architecture, as I explained earlier, is very transformational internally. It's not easy. I mean, we all said it's not easy. It's our people that have an issue for that. But we have the NAS platform is already live. We have some services that have been converted. Now, my biggest issue is I've asked my network engineer to expose services, right? As I talk, firewall as a service, AAA as a service, and so on, so that these can be reused in multiple products. My guys are doing it themselves because there is no such standard as firewall as a service, as AAA as a service, as, you know. And what I'm looking for is a forum to where we can define all of these, and we all agree that when I go into your country and I'm asking for, can you deliver that same thing, then we speak the same language. Now, MEF is addressing some of that, but not all of it, and it's painfully slow. And we're doing this now. Yeah. And, you know, changing later on your definition is also very hard. So, you know, I'm looking for cooperation within the industry to get a bit quicker on that.
That's great. Everyone wants to know what are the barriers. So we talked a bit about them, but it'd be great to hear from one of the panel members, you know, maybe barriers that you're facing that you need to overcome. Who would like to?
No, I can. You know, I've already, you know, I think there's a few, and we've touched upon them all already. I think one of the barriers which we see is the fact that, as I said before, customers are not looking for, you know, automation of one piece of the solution. You know, nobody comes to us and says, "Oh, Verizon, can you deliver me, you know, a fully automated, you know, virtualized routing service?" They're not interested in that. You know, they're interested in combinations, the ability to deliver, you know, a secure, you know, end-to-end transaction, whatever components we need to bring together around this. And what we see is that, you know, automation, you know, today is a reality and works, but works mostly smoothly if you stay within, you know, a little bit of a controlled ecosystem. You know, as soon as you start to move out of that, you know, may become more complex. And so I think that's one of the, you know, you clearly see the industry which needs to come together from that perspective. And I think, and you know, we've mentioned it a few times, it is also a big change. It's a big change for, you know, the product teams, for the engineering teams, for the support teams, and we should not underestimate that at all. I think there are people there who object to change, you know, all the time, by default.
Saboteurs.
Yeah, but I don't think it's not about these people. It's about the people who actually want to, you know, embrace the change. But it's a big task, and from that perspective, I think it's probably the biggest transformation as an industry we have gone through, and we. You know, and I think it was mentioned in one of the presentations. You know, we need these kind of skills, these kind of people. Yes, we will hire some new ones, but they are just not. It's not possible to go out and hire because everybody wants to do that. So we have so much knowledge in-house that we should foster that and think of new ways to pull these people along with us. If not, we will all, as an industry, you know, we will all fail.
In fact, I could add a little bit to that from some of the discussions I've been in IT shops, such as in the financial industry, that have made the turn to go cloud native. And believe it or not, they faced a lot of resistance from how they used to build apps as being monolithic. And what I gathered was yes, you have to hire in a little bit of fresh blood. You have to change the organization of the teams and make their KPIs so they fail or succeed as a team on a particular element. But also, at the end of it, people have limitations in their flexibility. And what they found was about 1/3 would embrace the change, about 1/3 could go along with it, and about 1/3 wasn't much you could do. That was the hard reality that they faced. Okay, well, we've got about 15 minutes, so why don't we ask a different question, maybe a little bit more on the technology side. From your perspective, we talked a lot about abstraction, how important that is, separation of concerns, about intent-driven interfaces, and about all of these things that make it easier. And I wanted to get a sense from someone on the panel, what's your estimate of the state of maturity in achieving that? Are we at the beginning, at the end? How long is it going to take, and what do we need to do to accelerate that? Someone wants that. Okay, it sounds like a question for you.
Sounds like a question for me, indeed.
You've got your mic.
Well, all of you have been in the session before, which I presented, but about intent-based was an important notion. You said there's a lot of things like, let me take just the notion of abstraction. I was in university, I don't say the year, so then you know how old am I, where object orientation was just the hype coming up. And abstraction was a key point in that. You can inherit things. So comparing that case here, what I said before, hey, there's a connectivity. Okay, I need a connectivity. That's the abstracted thing, what I need, right? So today it's an SD-WAN. Yesterday it was a VPN. Tomorrow it may be a slice. So what? But it's still a connectivity. Why can I not model it in that way? So, and I think the enterprise IT is already doing that in that way. That's where telcos are a little bit behind, but they come from a different angle. We have to respect that. So they had very complex networks, and really something needs to be running on that, really, and they need to have assurance on that is really giving the service, and not just doing somehow connectivity, right? I mean, that's the reason why IP telephony with some products on the market, it's still not that safe as classic telephony. We just need to be aware of that. So there is a fast fail, fast recover trial. We need to learn in telco to become more agile, more fast, more trial. We need to have more atomic things which we can test and compose finally into the service. And there are things which are already in IT since many years ago. We talked about policy and so on, but still it's not there in our brains yet. So we need to discuss together. And all of us, being part of the ETSI-ZSM initiative, are actually bringing in their knowledge, and we try to shape it in a new way and to encourage you and to bring this up what makes it real. So there is, in fact, a reel already out, which is today not used because it's a new world. So that's what we can help.
Yeah, and in fact, you're right. We can borrow a lot of concepts from that have come before. I actually remember making the jump from C to C++, going to object-oriented programming, probably in the late 80s. Yeah. And there's a lot of abstractions that we can use here as we move forward in the models. Yeah. Let me see. We wanted to talk a little bit about data. And that's also important. We've talked about the role of data and how critical it is. And maybe someone wants to help us understand, can we actually get to the right data that we need? And if so, can we then are we able to move the data where we need it so that we can process it?
Well, I think we need to do still a work to access the data in an efficient way. So I think today we are able to get the data. So all of us, I think, have applied plenty of automation solutions based on data sources in our networks. But we need to be more efficient in the way we ingest data, collect data, process it, and make it ready for the APIs that need to consume the data. If we don't produce this, that is what we call the data layer, in an efficient way, we may have an impact on the performance of the infrastructure, network and IT. And I think this is one of the points that we need to take care of. Another one is to have these interfaces standard, so in a way that are easy for external mechanisms from partners developed by the provider or from vendors of management systems to have this extraction and actuation on the network. we don't have this standardization yet, and I think it's another point. And finally, I think we need new roles also in the organizations regarding data. We need data owners, so people in charge of having consistency on the data, of ensuring that the data is accessible, that is consistent, is cleaned, is understood, and even people supporting us, data lawyers and these kind of roles, to understand what can be done with the data, how this must be protected and stored, and how the access to the data is controlled. So we have, I would say, plenty of experience, still need to create a systematic approach to data management to industrialize this automation. That I think is the pending subject for operators.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. Recently, I was at a conference talking to a few people from AWS, and they were talking about how difficult and human intensive it still is to label data so that then they could go and be processed by the machine learning algorithms. There's even a push now to have humans start the process and then train the model so they can start labeling the data.
Yeah, and you have activities like feature engineering, so select the variables that are important for specific use cases. I think this is also relevant to avoid these data sets to become huge and unmanageable. Okay, so also we need people that is able to focus on the right data and parameters to solve problems.
Okay, let me see. We've got still some time. At some point, I want to open the floor to a question or two from the audience, but I've got one more here that I think I'd like to focus on. And I think the one that I would pick is, so we've talked about the web scalers, and maybe some people feel the heat or the pressure because of some of the things they've demonstrated to the world. But the question is, two sides to the same knife. What can we borrow or make use of? And what is different for communication service providers that needs to remain distinct? So does someone want to try that one? And more than one person can respond if you think it's worth two people.
I'll give it a stab. Is it well, yeah, it's working. So I think what is common is that we are all addressing consumers. So regardless, and what is changing is the society. We as consumers are more demanding. Okay, either is Airbnb, is Uber, is whatever web scale we're dealing with. We want real time, and real time it's not near real time. It's exactly in the moment, before the moment, or right after the moment. So it cannot be an offline processing to get a root cause analysis and to get an action on, either to fix a problem or to monetize an opportunity. So I think that's the common denominator in terms of who are we addressing. It's the consumers, is the 7 billion, whatever. I think what is different is where we started 100 years plus ago, right? With the telco industry evolving from very rudimental, let's say, switching mechanical to the days of today, but still keeping many of those legacy things where web scalers born digital, they don't have that background. I mean, it's much lighter moving, and the thought process, it's not about being cloudified, it's about being cloud native. It's not automating, it's about being automation native. If it's not automation native, we'll not even use it. There's no other reality in these people's heads. That's a bit, when I go in the forum and discuss with a Google counterpart, the guy really, and they're eating the lunch of a lot of the CSP business. So we actually have to build a pipe so that they go on top and make the money. But I think that's good in making us move faster, and the opportunity is there because the pipes will always be needed, and the magic of electromagnetics, it is still going to be there regardless of the business model. So I think we need to harvest that opportunity and maybe reinvent ourselves into that new dimension. So if you want to add on top.
Well, I think the difference is that they use automation by default and by design. So from day one, their processes are thought and designed to be automated. They were lucky because the asset they are working on is a software asset, is the cloud. we were not so lucky because we have a lot of physical infrastructure and that we need to softwareize, and we're in the process of softwareizing to make it manageable. So they were luckier, but I think that what we can learn from them is that new technologies that we are embracing, like 5G, multi-access computing, the Open RAN now, and many other technologies that are coming, we should think on them with automation by design from day one. And I think it was our colleague from TM Forum saying, no, I think 5G for success needs automation, okay? And slicing will not happen with automation. We have heard as well. Multi-access computing, is a key element or a key example of the need of automation for success. So, I mean,
well, that makes a lot of sense.
And maybe one additional element, because I agree, automation by design, but also these CSPs, they really put customer experience first. Yeah. Because in the end, if you're able to, you can only differentiate yourself by by the actual experience. If you have an app, what are you going to use? The one which is the most most straightforward, the one you really understand. That's what you're going to do. That's where I think they had a clear head start. Where I think we as an industry, we all talk about customer experience. I think we still have a lot there to focus on. So I would say automation and customer experience is probably a key element.
Can I just make a point? So far, as a service provider, we've always had a line of sight to the customer, right? We talk about customer experience. Let's move to connected cars. Let's move to remote medical. Let's move to robotic, right? So are we going to build cars? Are we going to build the automation for the cars? Are we going to build the remote health? Are we going to, operate this thing for the doctors? We're not. We are losing the line of sight to our customers, right? And we need to insert ourselves in that value chain, and they have to pick us somewhere in the chain, as opposed to potential cloud players, for example. Where do we stay relevant? And it's only if we're going to be able to put ourselves there in an easy fashion. They can't come to us and say, oh, well, how long is it going to take you to deliver me, that connectivity for my connected car? And if we say, 3 months or a year, goodbye, right? So 5G is really going to challenge us. And unless we do something and we convert ourselves for automation, I'm sorry, but we're losing that line of sight. We have to insert ourselves somewhere in there.
And by the way, in North America, the long time it took to get an MPLS line provision was part of what gave SD-WAN a good chance.
We had more patience back then.
Well, we have about 2 minutes left, and I do have more questions, but if someone from the audience wanted to take advantage of the fact we have such a learned panel here today, I'd be happy to open the floor. If anybody has a question, we have someone over here.
Thank you. I had just one question. Is automation, there's one big elephant in the room, that's a legacy equipment. How do we deal with those?
I can take that. In our architecture, we're actually dealing very well with the legacy. We've decided that all we're doing is we are converting our organization to exposed services. Whether underneath you have physical connectivity, you're doing it with physical ways or virtual ways, it doesn't matter. All we're asking is that you're exposing a service, right? Whether it's a firewall as a service, triple play, whatever, right? And then what we've done is we've simplified our BSS, and we've already did the contract with the BSS with our NAS platform, and the NAS platform has a master service catalog. So for those domains that are not ready, it's basically coming down, the order comes down to our NAS platform. NAS platform says, okay, where are all those services that are part of this product that the customer has ordered? Oh, I know, this one goes to this domain because it's ready, and this one goes, it goes back to the old legacy way of doing things, and then it goes that way. And so it allows us to migrate and to get the domains to migrate whenever they are ready, all right? And we are handling the legacy as well, and we are converting our legacy.
So maybe what I'm referring to is not the sales of fuel. It's more operation, maintain the network, right? Lots of OPEX spending. You know, you change your board, you do the fiber cutover, you expand the bandwidth. Those things consume most of the OPEX. How do we automate those? Because zero touch, plug and play, those kind of things. What technology enable those kind of things?
Well, yeah, it's network virtualization and softwareization. Will reduce the amount of hardware activity and physical activity in the network, of course. But just to add on what you said, so I think a part of the legacy we should not automate. So especially the part that is on the route to switch off. I mean, if it is a clearly declining technology, you must be rational and say, take apart and say, well, it's not worthwhile investing because automation requires an effort to apify and to integrate in your systems. So depends on the life that the legacy is having still, okay? And the commercial situation. Yes, you need to make a prioritization, yes.
Okay, well, we are done for the panel. I want to thank everyone. And I guess now we're over to you, Nuri.
Yeah, thank you very, very much to all the panelists, and special thanks also for the moderator. Very interesting, I think.